Let's go ahead and get started. I'd like to welcome everyone and thank you for your participation. My name is Tim Bartow. I'm the Vice President of Business Development at Synchronet. I'm joined today by Andrew Defoe, who leads business development efforts globally for the AWS public sector practice. Thank you, Andrew. I'd also like to thank our host, DLT Solutions. Many of you know DLT is a government technology provider with a best-in-class portfolio of software and cloud solutions. They are an AWS partner as well and Synchronet teaming partner. So collectively, we have a lot of experience in the education space. So for those of you who may not be as familiar with Synchronet, Synchronet is an advanced consulting partner. We're focused exclusively on Amazon Web Services end user compute solutions. So that represents Workspaces, AppStream 2.0, Citrix on AWS. And so we work with education customers on the full life cycle from proof of concept to production at scale and as well as ongoing support. So today's topic is VDI is dead, long live desktop as a service. So VDI is certainly not quite dead, and desktop as a service is not entirely a new technology. However, we're hearing from a lot of our education customers in the Southwest market and beyond that their on-premise or hosted traditional virtual desktop infrastructure may be up for refresh, and they'd like to explore what other options are available. So there are some good ones, as Andrew is about to share with you. So lastly, a housekeeping item. We've got a full house. So if you have any questions, please put them in the chat window, or you can wait until the end and we'll leave some time for Q&A. So if you stay to the end, we're happy to share some additional information with you. We've actually authored a white paper on this subject with AWS. We can send you some useful links. And we'll be sending out a survey so you can score us on how we did, if there's more information you'd like, so we can continuously improve. So we're here to help. With that, I am pleased to introduce Andrew Defoe with AWS. Andrew?
Thank you, Tim, and good morning to everyone. Just again, to introduce myself, I am a technical business development manager with AWS Public Sector, focusing on end user computing. And today I'll be talking about our end user computing services and the relevance for education and really solving some of the different use cases that you're looking at today, whether that's student labs, faculty-facing workloads, as well as potentially research. We've got a number of different services and capabilities that I think will be highly relevant to address many of those use cases, and we'll go through, provide an overview of those solutions and some of the use cases they are solving for today, and some customers that are using these services, and then go into a brief demonstration of the services, and then we'll open it up for questions at the end. So talking about kind of the services and where we are with AWS and end user computing, we offer four specific solutions and services today in this space to help education customers with their endpoints and user computing for applications and for desktops. The two services we'll spend the most time talking about today are Amazon Workspaces and Amazon AppStream 2.0. Workspaces is our desktop as a service, so it is there as a way to provide Windows or Linux-based desktops that are cloud-based to your students, as well as to your faculty and educators, as well as researchers. We also offer AppStream 2.0, which is a way to stream Windows-based applications to a device. All you really need on the device end is an HTML5 browser. It's a very lightweight approach to delivering applications for open access virtual labs, which we'll talk about. I also want to highlight a couple of additional services that are relevant in this space as well. Amazon WorkDocs, which is our file share and collaboration service, I think can be highly relevant for student-facing opportunities for students to persist and store data, as well as for research use cases. So if you do have scenarios where you're looking to provide secure access to sensitive or regulated data as part of your research initiatives, think about WorkDocs in conjunction with our Workspaces and AppStream services to provide secure access and centralize the data when providing access to your end users. And then lastly, WorkLink, which is our managed service to provide access on mobile devices to secure internet sites. So if you think about enterprise applications like SAP, if you think about workflow applications like Jira, Confluence, and other internal sites, if you're looking for a lightweight approach to deliver those applications natively to a web browser while keeping all the data centralized, WorkLink is an outstanding product for that, just launched in January. So today we work with tens of thousands of customers, both in education and across various different verticals in financial services, healthcare, life sciences, government as well. And then those tens of thousands of customers today serve over hundreds of thousands of end users globally to support their various initiatives, whether it's student-facing and education labs, supporting coursework, internal research purposes. Just a couple of call outs here on some higher education customers that are utilizing our services today. University of Maryland University College, Case Western Reserve, Cornell, James Cook University, Melbourne Business School, Radboud University in Netherlands, and then University of Arizona are all higher education institutions that are taking advantage of the scalability and agility of AWS to deliver applications and desktops both to students as well as for some internal use cases where they've moved away from traditional VDI to address those types of requirements. And so our initiative and our mission with AWS and end user computing is really about anywhere, anytime access to data and applications on the devices that end users want to use. So in a lot of cases, especially in academia, there's a high degree of desire for students to utilize and bring their own devices. We know from EDUCAUSE data that about 90% of students bring their own devices, in most cases multiple devices to camp, and especially if they're learning it from a distance, there's interest and opportunities to provide that access to those users' personal devices, but be able to do that anywhere, anytime that is appropriate. While doing that, we also want to help ensure that IT can maintain data security, especially for regulated data, obviously reduce complexity versus on-premises and traditional VDI, and ultimately our goal is to improve productivity both for faculty, educators, as well as for students, and improve outcomes. While we're doing that, we are certainly aware of the existing challenges and why I think we say VDI is dead, long live desktop as a service. As we work with customers in higher education, we certainly know that IT teams have done a fantastic job over the years in utilizing traditional VDI to provide solutions both for educators, faculty, as well as for students. But there are inherent challenges with the technology. The first being it really doesn't scale very well. So when you're thinking about the 3 to 5 year traditional life cycle for VDI infrastructure, the licensing and maintenance that goes along with that, it just doesn't keep up with the changing demands that institutions face these days to compete for students and provide newer and disruptive and innovative ways to educate students and provide them with real world learning scenarios. That is increasingly challenging with traditional VDI. And the same is true for application management. Whether you're talking about delivering applications that have varying degrees of system requirements, especially graphics accelerated, high degree of memory and compute requirements, whether it is the ability simply just to manage the life cycle of those applications with fixed infrastructure, the ability to update, provide the latest and greatest versions of that software, make those changes while students and faculty are still utilizing the current versions, be able to have that change management process happen seamlessly, challenges with license management, and of course challenges with personal devices that students or faculty or even researchers want to bring. What we see is the end result in a lot of cases is a less than desirable user experience, especially if those users are trying to access resources from a distance. They may not have the right hardware configuration to meet the high demands of software applications today. There may be limits on capacity, meaning there's wait times or just unavailable access during peak times of year when demand is at a critical mass. And then obviously the challenges in, again, accessing applications from their own devices. And so, when we talk specifically about education labs, I think these bullet points highlight the real, specific challenges, both from a student perspective, an educator's perspective, as well as administrators. Students obviously want and are interested in access to real world learning scenarios. They want to be able to access those applications on their own devices. They want to bring their files from wherever they prefer to store them, and they want to access that anytime, anywhere. Educators, meanwhile, obviously want to provide the best overall learning experience. They want to disrupt. They want to bring new applications, new ideas to IT, and find ways to deliver those scenarios for students. There is competition, as we all know, for students within higher education, and increasingly that is true for distance learning as well. So it's critical for educators to be able to provide a world-class experience for students at any level. While we're also seeing that, we're seeing trends of obviously, there's no compression algorithm for real estate in a lot of cases. So there's challenges to make sure you're making the best and most effective use of campus real estate. So thinking about the traditional computer lab model and thinking about how to reimagine those spaces, whether that's as classrooms, collaboration spaces. There's definitely initiatives underway right now across many higher education institutions that we work with, where they are starting to rethink those spaces and effectively turn any classroom or meeting space into a lab utilizing AWS and cloud technologies. And ultimately, what we also want to do, and what educators are keenly aware of, is their productivity in the classroom. They want to spend time teaching and instructing, not in providing tech support. So when you think about applications that students are trying to get up and running in their own devices, dealing with licenses, compatibility issues, that's a lot of time where students aren't learning and instructors are not providing value. So it's really important to think about more streamlined approaches to delivering education labs. And then meanwhile, I know central IT and administrators are trying to keep up with all these different changing application and hardware requirements, manage capacity, manage lab schedules and constraints around those existing resources. Meanwhile, ensuring security, obviously privacy and compliance, especially for the regulated data that may be available to either students, educators, or researchers, is always paramount. So these are really the challenges that I think that we're seeing and we're facing. I'm sure many of these resonate with you. And so what we certainly want to be able to do is address these challenges head on. And the way we can do that, with student and educator needs and IT needs, from a student perspective, again, it's work anywhere, any device, anytime, access the applications and data they need, and to be able to be innovative and agile, collaborate, work with instructors, work with their peers, and to be able to disrupt and move things forward and kind of free yourself up from the shackles of traditional technology and infrastructure. And then from an IT perspective, obviously, it's security, it's control and access, it's improving productivity, and meanwhile, we want to help IT reduce complexity and costs. And that's really how we want to resolve that tension. And of course, AWS and the cloud, we believe, are ideally suited to address those types of requirements. And so with our end user computing technologies, we of course, meet these key kind of tenets and criteria. First, of course, is anytime, anywhere access. AWS as a service is available on the internet, so students and faculty and researchers can access these resources anywhere, anytime. All they need is an internet connection. The services do scale with changing requirements, so there are no long-term commitments, no contracts, no licenses. You can scale up from one user to thousands of users and back down again, in some cases on an hourly basis. So that the solution is designed to avoid peak restraints or constraints on your students and access. We can scale up and down to meet demand, and our model and our mantra is you pay for what you use. We don't want to have you locked into a long-term contractual agreement or be stuck with infrastructure that isn't providing and meeting your needs. Our goal is to provide you what you need when you need it. And of course, that's going to unlock and enable innovation for your students and for faculty and researchers to take advantage of those different types of technologies. And from an IT perspective, we provide the security controls, the access controls, so that you can provide access only to the users that need to access the applications and data. You can track and audit that access utilizing our control and security solutions and tools built into AWS. And ultimately, because you're not managing infrastructure, you're not managing licenses, you're going to simplify your IT operations as a part of that transformation. One thing we also try to do as a tenant is to make sure that we are meeting you where you are as an IT organization. So whether it means you have resources today that are on premises that you still want to utilize with your AWS environment as you build out these end user computing services, we can connect with your on premises or colo facilities through private connectivity, whether that's VPN or our direct connect private link. We do support identity management, so your AD infrastructure, your ID providers, your SAML providers. We integrate with those services today to make sure that we have seamless authentication and we can connect to your users and manage and utilize their identities. And we support obviously existing app management solutions. So if you have systems in place that you're happy with respect to client management, whether that's application management or patch management, we allow you to use all those different services and capabilities. So you can really think about AWS and end user computing services really as an extension of your existing infrastructure. We're not asking you to reinvent the wheel. We're just asking you to take advantage potentially of services that will make your life easier without fundamentally changing how you utilize some of these existing capabilities that still obviously provide significant value and may be the source of truth for identity and security in your organization. So you can bring those capabilities with you and use the cloud seamlessly with those technologies. And so our Amazon Workspaces service, to talk a little bit about the service, is, as I mentioned, secure cloud desktops. When you provision a desktop for a user, and I'll take you through a brief example of this, you're provisioning a desktop, you'll select the software, the operating system, the hardware, the sizing for that. You can provision that for a user or hundreds or thousands of users. You can select the sizing of the machines that meet their needs. Once provisioned, those machines are persistent. They live as long as you need them to. So they're ideal for scenarios such as the coursework, research, or even a traditional VDI replacement option. And I'll talk about some different use cases in the next slide. The solution is scalable because you can scale from 1 to thousands of users without having to purchase any infrastructure and then scale back down again. It's all pay as you go, so there is no commitment. It's all based around what you need. Very simple to deploy and manage, as you'll see, and obviously our partner Synchronet provides significant value in this area around user automation, and they've got some great technologies and capabilities that add to workspaces. But this is really a highly integrated and highly interactive cloud desktop that users really enjoy and get a lot of benefit from versus traditional virtual desktop infrastructure. And so some of the different use cases that we definitely see for workspaces in education. The first, of course, is a traditional VDI replacement scenario. If you have aging VDI infrastructure today and you are thinking about moving to the cloud or looking at alternatives, you can take those VDI environments and migrate them into an Amazon Workspaces desktop environment very easily. It's also ideal for supporting a global workforce. So if you do happen to have partnerships or collaboration with international universities, or if you have students that are accessing your services and are enrolled from a distance, workspaces can be ideal for global reach in terms of that. We have 13 different regions today that Amazon Workspaces is available in globally, and I'll show you that. So it is certainly an ideal scenario if you are trying to solve for those really remote users that you want to provide local access to your applications and your data and systems. Also ideal for bring your own device scenarios and for mobile workforce. And so as we think about what's happening in commercial and enterprise as well as with education, we're seeing changes in the way people work. People are increasingly working from a home, they're teleworking. And so, there's a simple way to securely provide desktop access on any device. Workspaces can meet that requirement. And then, of course, for student-facing scenarios, you can think about deploying student desktops, pay by the month, pay by the hour, for students that are pursuing certain coursework or degree programs. So we see many universities utilizing workspaces. They may spin up a desktop for a user that's enrolled in a particular course. That student may just utilize the desktop for a few months during the quarter or the academic term, and then that desktop is terminated once the student has completed the course. We also see universities taking that to the next level and maybe providing a desktop that stays with that student all the way through their degree with the school. So it might be a business college, it might be computer science engineering. You can provide a desktop that just stays with the user, and the applications they have access to will change based on that student's enrollment. And then, of course, we see, especially for-profit universities that are thinking about new and innovative ways to engage students, provide what we kind of call a desktop for life model, where they're actually providing desktops to students that can access those from any device, and that's essentially available for that student on a continual basis all the way through their tenure with the school. So lots of interesting ways to rethink the way students access applications and resources utilizing workspaces. Because of the agility of workspaces, we also see a tremendous amount of opportunities around project-based work. And so if you think about research, whether it's accessing open data on AWS or accessing regulated data that might be ITAR compliant or maybe HIPAA compliant, you can wrap the compliance and utilize AWS to store that data take advantage of our machine learning database analytics services, and then have local access to those from an endpoint that university researchers and federated researchers can access securely. And so we see a lot of interest in use cases around that with workspaces in academia, because you can centralize the data, only provide pixel streams essentially to the end user's device. They can access that anytime, anywhere. You can audit that access and meet security requirements, provide new and innovative ways for researchers to access those environments, and scale that out as much as you need to. And in a lot of cases, that may include providing very high-powered desktops for users, but only have to pay for that essentially by the hour. So it's a very flexible way of providing access on a project basis. And that's also true for development and test environments. So if you have application developers, testers, these are great opportunities to think about cloud desktops. Again, because of the project-based approach, it doesn't have to be the user's primary desktop. You can spin that up, just pay for the time that you use it. Once that project is completed, you can spin that down and move on to the next project. So you can think about budgeting, allocating access and resources, least privilege. It's a great way to think about working, especially when that work is happening on AWS. And then from a security and compliance perspective, it's job zero for us with AWS. We're always thinking about ways and approaches and controls to ensure that you have access and secure access to your data. And so whether that's encryption at rest, encryption at transfer, tracking access, auditing login activity, providing the metrics around that. We can meet regulatory requirements, including FERPA, HIPAA, ITAR in our GovCloud region, and more. So these are great resources that if you're thinking about the most strictly regulated, unclassified data, Workspaces is a great solution for those use cases as well. So talking about AppStream, and so AppStream really see as a great opportunity to think about scalable access to applications. This can be utilized in conjunction with our Workspaces desktop application, or it can be utilized completely separate from Workspaces desktops, and kind of what we call working without workstations. So you can stream applications to any user's desktop, whether that's a Chromebook device, a Mac, a lightweight Windows device, a tablet. Those Windows-based applications can be streamed to any device with a keyboard effectively and a browser. And so what we do with AppStream is you can think about it as a way of pairing up an image that has your applications and configuration, and we essentially scale that out in a elastic model to support concurrent demand that you may have, and that demand can change throughout the day. And so if you have scenarios where you're looking to provide open access labs, providing access to different applications for students, maybe in a library setting or as part of a school, open access application program, or campus-wide, AppStream is a great solution to provide access to those applications and pay a very low cost per user, primarily because of the scalability that's available. The solution does integrate with existing IT, and that means you can bring your own identities, you can integrate with your AD services, you can integrate with printing services, storage, and that storage may also be cloud services that are available from other cloud providers such as G Suite or OneDrive. So if you are providing those types of services for your students today, you can integrate that storage directly into AppStream, and I'll provide an example of that during the demo. But it's a great way to think about managing applications centrally as well. So if you have licenses that you've gathered from various vendors, sometimes those licenses are available free of charge from the vendors because you're utilizing those for academic purposes. It's super important in those agreements to control access to those licenses. And so when you proliferate that to students on their own devices, sometimes it's a bit tricky to manage that, especially at scale. AppStream solves that problem. It keeps everything centrally managed. All your licenses stay in one place. All the user has to do is click, get access to the application, not have to worry about any installation, frees up the faculty, the instructors. They're not thinking about tech support. They're just focusing on helping the students utilize the applications and improving outcomes in learning. And so ways you can utilize AppStream 2.0, obviously education labs is the key use case that we see in academia. We see really a lot of opportunities for universities, and I'll call out Cornell University as a great example. They've had historically had traditional computer labs for engineering, utilizing applications like Autodesk, AutoCAD, Inventor, Revit, and we're looking for newer ways to deliver those applications and avoid having to deal with the complexities of student-owned devices, license proliferation, and thinking about ways to reimagine that physical real estate on campus. And so AppStream is helping them do that. They can provide very high-end compute capabilities to run applications. That includes 3D acceleration, high memory, high CPU, pay a few cents per hour for those resources, scale out to meet demand, and then scale in when use is at a minimum. And so with this type of scenario, you can provide a very low-cost lab infrastructure that scales extremely well when you're thinking about delivering these types of applications across an entire school or campus, or even at a distance. You can kind of provide equity for students, whether they're coming in on campus, at a distance, regardless of device. So we think about digital transformation, digital equity, and helping. And AppStream is definitely a solution that can help educators, provide that type of equity to students. We also see value in that this solution for enterprise and business applications as well. So if you have some homegrown or some tricky enterprise applications, I'll mention SAP client as one of those. Sometimes within a faculty-facing setting, there may be scenarios where you're thinking about simplifying access to those applications, especially for remote workers. And so you can also think about AppStream for your internal back office use cases as well. Within AppStream, we have multiple instance families, and so the solution really is designed to support even the most demanding graphics optimized or memory or compute optimized applications. And so we are working with a variety of different vendors, Esri, Autodesk, MathWorks, Siemens, SolidWorks, and more. And so when we work with these vendors, we're producing co-authored deployment guides. We're working with those vendors to make sure that educators have a clear pathway and be able to obtain support on these applications in an AppStream setting. And we see a number of different universities getting a lot of benefits from scaling out to support these high demand applications, provide students with great learning experiences over a browser, and to be able to scale in when use is at a minimum. So these are key characteristics. Our instances for AppStream start only at 10 cents per hour and can scale up to support even the most demanding applications. And so a lot of flexibility, especially if you're thinking about 3D and graphics accelerated application use cases. And then our Amazon WorkDoc service, just to mention that briefly before we jump into a demonstration, I do want to call this out. We know a number of universities have agreements with either G Suite or with Office 365, and in a lot of cases provide one or both of those services to their students. And so file storage may not necessarily be a problem you're looking to solve for today. But with WorkDocs, one of the benefits of that is if you're doing a lot of your work on AWS, especially related to let's say test and dev or research, you can think about WorkDocs primarily because you're going to have local access to your workspace or to your AppStream application environment. So you're going to have very low latency access. We do utilize our S3 object storage service behind the scenes. What that basically says is you have a service that's designed for 11 nines of durability. And is available and replicated in multiple data centers within an AWS region. And that just means you have strong resiliency around that data, and you can keep that centralized with your desktop and application workflows. The solution is highly extensible with our SDK, so you can design some interesting capabilities around that. And we do offer with WorkDocs as well a bundle with workspaces. So if you are thinking about traditional VDI replacement or workspaces for research, workspaces for students, we do provide 50 gigabytes of WorkDocs for every workspaces user, or a terabyte per user for only $2 per month. So these are great scenarios if you're thinking about replacing a traditional kind of Windows file share. The way that WorkDocs presents itself to a workspace is basically just a mounted drive, but you're not having to manage any underlying infrastructure. It's all handled by AWS. And so it's a great storage solution. So if you are thinking about workspaces, of course, workspaces will work very well with your existing storage solutions, whether that's file servers, cloud storage services from Google, Microsoft, or other. But also consider WorkDocs, especially if you're thinking about centralizing the data, simplifying access, and taking advantage of the free tier. And so from our global footprint perspective, you can kind of see the different regions. Just to mention a region for those that are new to AWS, a region is basically a geographic part of the world where we have a collection of different data centers. And so we have 13 regions today where our workspaces services are available, multiple locations in the US, both in our East and West regions, as well as in our GovCloud region. So when we think about GovCloud, we do think about regulated data, and typically these will be sensitive but unclassified data, including ITAR data, CGIS data. And so if you are working as a university with those types of regulated data sets, GovCloud is a great opportunity for you to think about workspaces to provide secure access to that data. And then of course, we also have a global posture with these services. So if you do have some universities or research projects that are ongoing, where you have collaboration with international universities or researchers, you can think about workspaces in a global perspective. And with AWS, you have global reach to provide access to applications and data based on this global footprint. So with that, I'm going to do a brief demonstration, and then I'll turn it back to Tim. We'll open it up for Q&A. So inside the AWS Management Console, you'll see that I'm in the Oregon region right now. The AWS console provides access to our 160 plus different services. If you go down to end user computing, you'll see the services that we've been talking about: Workspaces, AppStream, WorkDocs, and WorkLink. So we'll jump into Workspaces, and I'll just kind of walk you through the experience of launching a workspace, just so you can kind of see the inputs and what's involved. And so Workspaces integrates very tightly with your existing AD. We can integrate to that where it sits today. So if you have on-premises AD, we can connect to that privately using VPN or our private connection service called Direct Connect. You can also move your AWS or your AD services to AWS. And we have a variety of different ways of doing that. You can run AD on virtual machines. You can also utilize our fully managed AD services. And we also have different opportunities if you are utilizing AD in other cloud services. We also have some integration options there as well. And so you basically bring your AD with you and integrate your existing identities with Workspaces. So to launch a workspace, it's just a point and click activity. So I'll go ahead and click a directory, an AD environment that I'd like to use for this. And I can basically click show all users just to show all the different users that are there, or I can search for one. This console experience is ideal for limited kind of deployment of users, so up to 20 users at a time. And I will mention everything that you see here is also available through our SDK and APIs. And so our partners like Synchronet have developed purpose-built user automation platforms that are ideal to take this to the next level and really improve self-service and automation around this. So when you're thinking about the scale of thousands or even tens of thousands of users, our partner solutions from Synchronet provide tremendous value. But for a simple example, I'll take you through the basic steps here. And so I'll just click one user. And what we're basically going to do is give this individual user his or her own Workspaces desktop that they can access through our Workspaces client app. And so now as an administrator, I'm presented with different options. So I can give the user 7 different configurations of hardware. And so we have CPU, memory, as well as storage that are available to choose from. So we offer value-based, standard, performance, power, power pro, and then getting into our graphics accelerated options as well. So our largest instance type is going to be a Graphics Pro with 16 CPUs and 122 gigabytes of memory, and this will also have NVIDIA GPU support as well. Without GPU acceleration, we offer Power Pro, so these are great for application development or for research analytics use cases with 8 CPUs, 32 gigabytes. And our standard bundle with 2 CPUs and 4 gigabytes of memory is typically ideal for those student or faculty use cases that are primarily utilizing general productivity applications like Microsoft Office, email, and other types of applications. The benefit of this is, with the exception of graphics, a simple reboot can allow a user to move between these different bundle types. And so if you do see a scenario where you've maybe undersized or even oversized the user based on his or her actual needs, on a per user basis, you can change the size of those machines with just a reboot to make sure that you're only utilizing the resources that you need, and you're optimizing your costs over time. And this is especially true if a user, for example, changes their activity. If they're maybe utilizing simple applications and now all of a sudden need to have access because they've enrolled in a new course, maybe they need additional capabilities because they're utilizing higher end applications with higher degrees of system requirements, a simple reboot will address that need. And that can happen as you go in the middle of a month. So you have total flexibility down to the individual user in terms of their sizing. And so we'll go ahead and select a standard. We do offer, as I mentioned, Linux and Windows. We also offer the ability to license Microsoft Office inside the workspace. We also recognize, of course, you have a lot of existing enterprise agreements or MSPAs, and especially academic licenses with Amazon or with those vendors like Microsoft. You can bring those licenses to AWS. You can also take advantage. We do have an education discount for Amazon Workspaces and AppStream that will reduce the costs versus our commercial customers. So those are also available. But we have total flexibility with our Workspaces bundles. You can utilize base bundles that we provide. You can take those, customize them, or import your own base images and iterate on those within the Workspaces environment. So total flexibility in terms of operating system, Windows 7, Windows 10. We also offer Amazon Linux 2 as a Linux distribution. So if you are utilizing Linux it could be for analytics, it could be for app dev, Workspaces is a great platform for that as well. Let's go ahead and select Windows 10 with Office 2016. You can adjust storage on a per user level. Each workspace comes with a C drive and a D drive. The D drive is where the user's data will be stored. The C drive is for the user's data, and for the C drive, and is for the image. And these can be scaled up to terabytes per volume, and this can also be scaled in place. So if you do launch a user and need to change that storage over time, you can increase the storage in place, doesn't even require a reboot, and the user has instant access to additional storage as needed. We do have the ability to support with Workspaces different running modes. Always on is basically a flat rate. It's always available 24/7. It's persistent. Auto stop is ideal for those scenarios where the student or the faculty member or the researcher may be utilizing the workspace less than full time. And so this is a scenario where you can just pay by the hour for that utilization. And this can also be something you change on an ongoing basis. So if you have a user that changes his or her utilization, you can adjust this as needed to optimize your costs. We do offer some cost optimization tools to help you analyze the users and identify which running mode will be appropriate. We do offer encryption at rest and in transit with Workspaces to support regulated workloads. And so with these selections, you basically just click through and go ahead and launch. It takes about 20 minutes or so to launch a workspace. And once launched, the user will have the ability to log in. And so I'm just going to use the Workspaces client app and go ahead and log in. Of course, it helps if I log in correctly. And so utilizing my AD credentials for the user, I can access my machine. Workspaces are always domain joined to your domain, so you can really think of them as extensions of your existing desktop environments. You can patch them the same way. Of course, we do provide patching and automated updates automatically, but if you do have an existing client management workflow that you'd like to utilize, we fully support that as well, so you can conform these workspaces into your existing practices from a client and desktop management perspective. And so here is a workspace. It is persistent for a user, whether it's an hourly model or a full monthly model. It's always persistent. The user can access their applications and data, close the session, rejoin from a different machine, different location, and pick up right from where they left off. Even in an hourly model, we'll basically just hibernate the machine and make sure that that application and data state is preserved for the user. So it's a really, really great way for users to be productive. You don't have to deal with all the different kind of non-persistent desktop scenarios of layering, persistent features, profile management. You can bring those technologies, but in this type of environment, because you have the persistent features of Workspaces, we find a lot of customers just kind of discontinuing those technologies because they really aren't necessary in a persistent model that Workspaces provides. And so let's transition a little bit over to AppStream, just to kind of show you a contrasting experience for app delivery. And so with AppStream, what I'm going to do is log into to AppStream utilizing my G Suite credentials. And so this is basically as a way of showing that with my AppStream environment that I've deployed, I've launched some applications for, let's say, a population of students. I'm utilizing G Suite as the identity provider. We work with any SAML 2.0 provider, which includes G Suite, Azure, Okta, Shibboleth, and others, including AWS SSO, so that any of those ID providers can be utilized so that students can simply do a single sign-on from their student portal or from a simple URL and get access to applications without having to log in again. And so with my G Suite credentials, I'll just select this demo user, and it will immediately redirect me into the AppStream landing page where I've launched different applications for the student, including Blender, Fusion Autodesk, LibreOffice, R and RStudio, Robot C, SketchUp. So I'll go ahead and click on Fusion Autodesk. And what's happening now is I'm reserving access to a virtual machine. Everything, both workspaces and with AppStream, are single user sessions, and so I'm not sharing infrastructure with another student at this time. So all of the CPU, memory, and compute that you have reserved for that student will be available. That's going to result in a very consistent experience from one session to the next. Everything happens on a single virtual machine, and we're going to run as many virtual machines as we need to support the student demand to the applications. And then when that demand goes down, we can scale down. When that demand goes up, we scale up to meet that demand. And you can also schedule demand based on known periods of peak usage or very low usage. And so both scheduling of demand as well as auto scaling helps you get your cost curve and your demand curve right on top of each other so that you're only paying for the resources that you need. And so with that, I'm going to go ahead and log into my Autodesk. In this example, I'm using a named user license from Autodesk. We'll work with a variety of different types of licensing models. Whether you have existing license servers that support concurrent access, those license servers can be sitting on premises. If you have enterprise license keys or named user licenses, regardless of the vendor, we'll work with a variety of different types of licensing schemes. And of course, with the partnerships that we have with companies like Autodesk, SolidWorks, Esri, MathWorks, and others, we're providing best practices in our deployment guides, which are available from the AWS resources page, where you can access those guides and get feedback from AWS and the vendor on the best way to deploy those applications into AppStream. We've onboarded a number of different types of applications, and we'll continue to add additional applications as we go. But for the most part, any application that can run on a Windows Server platform can typically run in AppStream, and we would definitely encourage you to look at the different use cases that you have, bring those to us and to Synchronet. We have seen a lot of these different applications. As you might imagine, a lot of the applications that we see are consistent across a number of different higher education institutions, and there's definitely best practices and tips and tricks that we can provide to you and support your migration efforts. And so inside the AppStream experience, what I basically have is the ability to multitask, so I can launch other applications and multitask between them within a single session. I do have the ability to provide and access my own data, and so that includes drag and drop from my client device. And you can also see here I've integrated Google Drive, so as a student I can access my Google Drive directly and pull up a file, which I'll do just real briefly here. We do support copy-paste functionality. We do support full screen. We can adjust streaming sessions, look at metrics or bandwidth and latency and different things. But it's a very lightweight interface. You have access to the full Windows session. We basically abstract away the Windows desktop so that the applications are available for the student on any platform with a browser. And the student, again, gets full access to the virtual machine resources, no sharing with other students. And so I'll just quickly open a file here. We'll just do open my computer. The Google Drive basically shows as kind of a subfolder experience within the PC. I can click on that, open up my project file into my Autodesk Fusion 360 application. And once it's loaded, I can do some additional work to, to manipulate the file, work on some changes. This is a graphics accelerated instance type, so as I kind of move around, this may or may not show up very well on the webcast, but it's a very fluid experience. Utilizing graphics, I can kind of see as I do this, I'm getting a very close kind of PC-like experience. As long as you have sufficient bandwidth and low latency internet connectivity, it's a great solution. We've done work with a variety of different types of universities on 3D applications, especially applications like ArcGIS Pro, SolidWorks. And in a lot of cases, students don't even know they're accessing applications over a browser. But it is definitely important to think about internet connectivity. That's probably the key requirement to make sure that your students will have a great experience with these services. So with that, Tim, I think I'll turn it back to you and we can answer any questions that you might have, and very much appreciate everybody's attention today.
Sounds great, Andrew. Thank you very much. For those of you still on the call, you have not lived until you've seen an Autodesk demo on a Samsung Note 9 smartphone or a Chromebook or a Zero or a thin client. Regardless of where you are in your cloud journey, we can help accelerate those objectives. So whether you're looking to test the full Windows 10 experience, as Andrew mentioned, or consume specific applications, you've got a lot of options available to experience this technology in your own environment. So reach out to your account manager, contact me or Andrew. We didn't have any questions in the panel. If there are any final questions, please post them there now. And while we've got Andrew and Stephen and the team on, we can answer those. Otherwise, I want to thank you again for your time. Reach out to your account manager or Andrew and I, and we'd be happy to answer your questions directly.
And so I do see a few questions that are coming in, and Tim, I can pick these up and we can tag team some of these. So the first question was around typical monthly costs, and so I'll cover that question both for Workspaces and for AppStream. So all of our pricing is public, so you can go to our AWS webpage. You can look at pricing both for Workspaces and for AppStream. And so pricing, of course, will vary depending on the size of the instances and machines that you need. A typical Windows, let's say standard bundle for Workspaces and an always on is around $33 per month per user. And an hourly model, if the user does not need quite as much utilization over the course of a month, those prices tend to start at about $7.25 per user per month. And then there's an hourly cost on top of that. And so depending on your use cases, and especially for students, we typically see an hourly model to be more cost effective. Most students will not utilize their desktop more than 20 hours per week, and about 20 hours or more, that's kind of the inflection point where the monthly model is more cost effective, because the user doesn't have to then worry about utilization at that point. They can use as much as they want for a flat rate. On the AppStream side, pricing for instances starts at 10 cents per hour per instance. And so the way that solution works, because it is auto scalable, you'll basically just pay for the capacity that you utilize. And so those instance rates start at 10 cents an hour. Our least expensive graphics accelerated instance is 25 cents an hour. So that's actually a really interesting use case. We see a lot of customers kind of gravitating towards AppStream because of that low cost kind of entry-level graphics capability. It's probably the least expensive way of running accelerated graphics anywhere, whether it's in the cloud or on premises. 25 cents an hour, you get a 3D accelerated instance that you can use just for as much as you need it. It's pretty interesting. So you can kind of think about those high-end lab machines or desktops that are sitting under somebody's desk, and those are great opportunities to move that to a consumption model and just pay a few cents per hour. Of course, we have higher end instance types to support very demanding applications, but that's all based around kind of how much capacity do you need, when do you need it. We obviously work with Synchronet, and we have our own capabilities as well with pricing tools to help you estimate these different solutions for your specific use cases. And then there was a question on AppStream and GovCloud. Absolutely, we are looking at that, and stay tuned is all I can say at this time. But we are absolutely thinking about that, and primarily around whether it's ITAR data, regulated data that's fit for purpose in GovCloud, and especially for FedRAMP high baseline, and potentially DoD level 4, level 5. Absolutely, AppStream is being considered for those use cases. But Workspaces is available now in GovCloud, so that may be a potential strategy as well for those use cases. There's clearly some overlap between workspaces and AppStream and what they can do, because of course you can run all your applications on a workspaces environment. So, but GovCloud is definitely something we are looking at as we continue our kind of global expansion of these different services for those different use cases. And then there's a question about multiple monitors, and so absolutely. So workspaces will support, depending on the client platform, up to 4 monitors. AppStream by default with the browser experience is single display. We do offer a native client app for Windows that will support multiple displays, and we'll continue to build out our native app profile for multiple devices so that you can extend, for example, on Mac and other other devices in the future. But we definitely have a pathway to support multiple monitor use cases with both products today.
Terrific. Any other questions? All right, well, that's a wrap. Again, I'd like to thank everyone for their time, and a reminder to please fill out the survey so we can continue to improve this and provide valuable information to you. If there's anything else you'd like to know, our contact information will be in there as well. Thank you. Have a great day.